morning. Is the video ready? Okay. Good morning. This morning's e-Pedigree subcommittee or committee meeting, and I'm just going to get over some housekeeping stuff. And this committee meeting is open to the public and is accessible to the physically disabled. A person who needs disability-related accommodation or modification in order to participate in the meeting may make a request by contacting Laura Hendricks at 916-574-7918 or by emailing Laura at Hendricks, HENDRICKS at dca.ca.gov, or sending a written request to Ms. Hendricks at the Board of Pharmacy, 1625 North Market Boulevard, Suite N219, Sacramento, California, 95834. Providing your request at least 5 business days before the meeting will help to ensure availability of the requested accommodation. And also, yet pharmacists and pharmacy technicians who attend the full committee meeting can be awarded 2 hours of CE in accordance to the board's CE policy. A maximum of 4 CE hours can be earned each year by attending the meeting of 2 different committee board meetings. C. With that, I guess we'll take a roll call to establish
Rosalind Hackworth, public member.
Randy Kajoka, professional member.
Stan Weiser, professional member.
Okay, is that enough for quorum? If we need to vote on anything?
You're only making recommendations, so
we can make a recommendation if so needed. At that, we're going to start out with projected e-Pedigree dates. Going to be September 26th and December 10th. September 26th is looking in
Los Angeles,
and then December 10th, possibly the Bay Area. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Next item will be a presentation by TechNarts regarding the operation and technical parameters of Turkey sterilized tracking system for prescription medication. Is that representative for TechNarts here?
They're coming in from Turkey via Skype, and I believe they're online. For those of you in the audience, this is just an announcement. We are webcasting today so that when you come up to speak, we're going to ask you to come to the front table to speak, announce your name, but recognize that you're being webcast. International fame. So, are you ready? You want to introduce them?
I don't see. That's Taha Yaycı. Yaycı will provide an overview of the requirements of the Turkey systems and how the system has operated. And so, if
Mr. Yaycı, are you on the phone? Victor? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me also?
Yes. Thank you for calling in. You have a very captive audience waiting to hear your wisdom. And you may proceed at any time.
I can barely hear you.
Victor, I think he can only hear you probably, so why don't you tell him to go ahead.
Please start.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to present ITS in this meeting. Now I'm ready. I'm sorry not being there with you face to face, but I will try to do my best to point out what we did and how we did it. The thing that we will talk is not just about counterfeit. In fact, it's about murder, because the problems that we all encounter now cause some deaths. So I want to start by telling you a saying in Turkey to emphasize our aims while starting that project. Let people live so the state would live. Our aim was to let people live. You are familiar this is nothing more than a problem-solving loop. First, I will define the problem and tell you what the situation in Turkey was. Then I will tell you the solution and define it. After that, we will talk about how we implemented it, and at the end, I will give you some statistics about the system and talk about the outcomes. The main problem is, in fact, was to ensure and guarantee the reliable supply of drugs to the patients. The secondary problems that we faced was preventing the sale of illegal drugs, smuggled drugs, illegal sale of drugs, barcode scams, and of course, by using this valuable data, support rational use of medicines. And we reached a result at the end that includes all of them, moreover, not limited to these. All stakeholders have licenses from Medicines and Medical Devices Agency in Turkey, and also all drugs are getting registered to the system of the agency after getting the permission from the scientific committee. The price of a drug is also defined by the agency, and 91% of the drugs are paid by the Reimbursement Association of the state. By knowing all this, you may conclude that the biggest customer of the industry is the state. The rest is very likely to other countries. A manufacturer manufactures a drug and sells it to a wholesaler. And if the wholesaler sells these drugs to a drug consuming center, such as hospitals, family physicians, polyclinics, in other words, the stakeholders that don't sell the drug to the patient, just uses the drug on the patient. The wholesaler acts as a tender and sells drugs in big amounts. But if the wholesaler sells the drugs to a retail pharmacy, which in Turkey should be managed by a pharmacist, then the wholesaler sells the drugs by small amounts, but in high frequencies. The drug consuming centers are clearly opens the drug pack and uses every tablet on a different patient, but don't sell the drug. The retail pharmacies, on the other side, sell the drug pack to the end user and rarely get the price in cash, but mostly send the invoice to the Reimbursement Association or an insurance company maybe, if the patient has a private insurance, and paid by the reimbursement entity. So, to the structure of Turkey, let's talk about the solution. Traceability, as all you know, the traceability is defined as track, trace, authentication, pedigree, returns, and recalls. So the solution is ITS, which is word-by-word translation of pharmaceutical track and trace system in Turkish. Formerly, all drug packs in Turkey was containing GS1 GTIN, which is global trade item number, and barcode to make it machine readable. In ITS, we first made the drug packs to be serialized by a serial number, which is a GS1 standard, and marked them with another GS1 standard data matrix to make it machine readable. Then we constructed a centralized repository to make all the stakeholders to notify the central management system about every action that they take on the drug pack. So ITS doesn't have any interface, but doesn't have any interface that's designed for the stakeholder. It has some rich points named as web services that can be used by the software applications that stakeholders use. All stakeholders are using their own management systems, and those management systems have interfaces for the use of the stakeholder, and in the background, the management system communicates with ITS to notify about the action taken on the drug pack. In this manner, ITS can track and trace a drug by using its serial number from the point of manufacture and to the point of dispense. With this way, it's for sure that ITS is a fully interoperable, electronic, unit-level serialization-based track and trace system for pharmaceuticals. As a result, we changed the situation of the pharmaceutical sector from being a high-profit, low-risk sector for criminals to a high risk, low profit. So, you know, criminals are still criminals, but they move to other sectors such as tobacco, food supplements, or other stuff. Now, in Turkey, in other sectors also. Let me tell you the situation in Turkey after ITS. This slide is the main slide of my presentation. So, first, we have ITS that you can see on the bottom of the screen. ITS is a centralized repository for serialized pharmaceuticals, and we have PTS on the top of the screen, a centralized file sharing platform. PTS is named as Package Transfer Service. In ITS, we are tracking and tracing the drugs by individual packs. In other words, ITS is working on the basis of drug packs. But the real trade doesn't go that way. Real trade is going by cartoons, boxes, pallets, and so on. So we created a new standard of language that can be used between stakeholders to share the hierarchical data that containers include and named it as PTS XML standard. First stakeholder who is making a container is creating an XML file, information of which container includes which drug packs, and uploads this XML file to PTS. After the physical transaction is done, the second stakeholder downloads the XML file from PTS and learns the hierarchy of the container. Then resamples some of the drug packs in the container to verify the XML file data is correct, and uses the data of drug packs in the XML file to notify the action to ITS. After telling you ITS and PTS, let's have a look at the workflow. Yes. A manufacturer manufactures a drug pack and sends a manufacturer notification to ITS, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. This is the birth record of the drug pack. Then, after an order comes from a wholesaler, the manufacturer sends the sale notification to ITS for the drug packs that he will deliver and creates an XML file containing the container hierarchy and uploads it to PTS. After the shipment is done and delivered to the wholesaler first downloads the XML file from PTS and uses the drug pack information in XML file to notify ITS about the purchase action. After the wholesaler sends the purchase notification to ITS, the ownership of the drug changes. A retail pharmacy or a drug consumer center sends an order to the wholesaler. The wholesaler sends the sale notification to ITS and uploads the XML file to PTS, as the manufacturer did. And he sends the drugs to the corresponding stakeholder, the retail pharmacy or the drug consuming center, downloads the XML file from PTS and uses the information of drug packs to notify the purchase action to ITS. For the drug consuming centers, the consume notification is done right before opening the drug pack and of the drug system, and the system prevents this drug to be used twice. But for the retail pharmacy, after getting the prescription from the patient, he sells the drug pack to the patient and sends the invoice to the reimbursement company or the association. Then the reimbursement association queries the sale from ITS and verifies if all the information that the retail pharmacy sent are correct before paying the price to the retail pharmacy. Then he pays the price and the cycle ends. So, phases, we implemented the solution in 3 phases. First phase was the preliminary phase, including workshops with the industry, defining standards, making the legislation, and defining the timeline. The second phase is named as phase 1, which is including meeting the technology standards for serialization and printing data matrix on the drug pack, and consequently, in this phase, manufacturer notification of manufacturers and sale notification of pharmacies was obligatory. And the reimbursement association was querying the sale before paying the price to the pharmacies, of course. In the third and phase, phase 2, the aggregation is done. By different words, all notifications are obligatory for all stakeholders. It's full track and trace. And as the government, the monitoring and support decision systems are developed, of course. Let's look at some statistics of the system, which is working for over 3 years. As you can see, we have more than 40,000 stakeholders included in the system. We tracked and traced more than 6.5 billion drug packs by ITS. And nearly 4 billion of them are sold. For the technical people who are curious, our response time is 0.03 seconds. In other words, it's 30 milliseconds. And our uptime ratio is 99.999%, which is over Tier 4 standard. And all the updated data can be at our website, that's its.go.tr, and you can reach them publicly. Our main objective was to ensure the reliable supply of drugs to the patients, but we achieved more, that you can see. We prevented the sale of counterfeit and smuggled drugs, prevented illegal sale of drugs, barcode scams, drug thefts. These 5 issues give us a saving of $1 billion. Let me say it again, it's $1 billion savings annually. By considering that pharmaceutical industry is $10 billion in Turkey, the saving has a significant effect. And also, we removed some of the bureaucratic things that saved our time. And the system gave us some instruments to support the fight against narcotics and black market. We can do more complex recalls, and they can be instantly applied. We can recall, for example, we can recall a batch or a half batch of a drug from just some type of stakeholders, and we can do the recall way, such as stopping the sale or efforts in the supply chain. And at the time we enter this recall to the system, it starts instantly, and no one can treat against the rule. Also, the data is valuable. We can use this data to support rational use of medicines, create administrative reports, monitor the industry, or we can use this data to prevent tax fraud also. Faster decisions and more consistent estimations can be also made by using this instantly updated data. So you can learn all the details and updated statistics from our website, as I said before, its.go.tr, and our cell phones and emails are always open to any questions that you can ask. And thank you for listening to me. And also I'm open to any question that's coming from you now. Can you hear me? Is there anyone?
Talking to the microphone, maybe that'll help. Or the phone, I don't know how you've got the connection.
Yes, I can hear Victor. Yes. First 3 years from 2005 to 2009, we tried to convince the politicians. So it took about 3 years to convince them, and 1 year simultaneously took for the legislations and the development of the central management system, and 1 year for phase 1 for the manufacturers to be ready for the aggregation and the wholesalers to be ready with respect to the technology. It took about for the development phase, and after 3 years it's consistent, and we started in January 2010. It's more than 3 years, I think, now, and the system is consistently working for 3 years.
Question to Randy, and he can rephrase.
Now, you mentioned, whatever you want to do, but you mentioned that it's at the unit level. So do they use inference much and to what degree? Or at all?
I want to know if you use inference much and to what degree.
Can you?
Because our regulations is the smallest sellable unit, which may be a bottle of 100, but it may be shipped in a case or a pallet. So there's inferences on the table to infer that the pallet or the case says what the bottle is inside that. Do you use inference, or is each sellable unit scanned into the system for verification or validation?
Are you able to get a question?
No, I'm sorry.
Just a second.
I can hear just the minimum saleable unit.
We have sellable, or
Yes.
the pedigree goes into the smallest sellable unit, but
Yes.
to ease the process through the supply chain, there is inference that could be implemented, and the inference would be that bottle, that smallest sellable bottle, could be packed in a case, which then may be packed in a pallet. So instead of breaking down each pallet, each case to scan the sellable unit, inference is in place. Do you use inference in your system as well?
Yeah, of course. That's the biggest point. That's the biggest problem of phase 2. In one of my slides, I said that PTS, package transfer service, and that secondary application solved our problem, because ITS is working for each drug pack, each minimum saleable unit, the smallest saleable unit. But PTS is containing the hierarchical data of which container contains which drug packs. So between the stakeholders, there is a system named PTS to share that hierarchical XML file between the stakeholders. So the aggregation part is really hard. I mean, was really hard for us. But after implementing PTS, we solved all of our problems. I can give you an example like this. The wholesalers are grading the manufacturers in Turkey. For example, for the manufacturer X, if manufacturer X is working based on a good standard, then the wholesaler just opens the case, opens the pallet, and 1 or 2 boxes if the manufacturer X has a quality of service. If manufacturer Y doesn't have a quality of service and often makes mistakes, then his grade is low. Wholesaler, when the wholesaler gets a package from manufacturer Y, he opens all the package and scans all the boxes with his own will, because the system is not deciding on behalf of the stakeholder. Stakeholder decides what to do with his own will. Is that an answer for your question?
Yeah, thank you. Because we have in our language what we call a trusted partnership or trusted relationship, which basically is what you
Yeah. Yes.
Navy-rated partners. So thank you. It
Yeah.
does address the fact
You're
that there could be some areas where it's not so tight, and that's why inference is checked, periodically. Do we have another question? We have a public board meeting in July 30th and 31st, which is our full board.
Yes.
And I wasn't
Yes.
sure if you would be able to make it to the States to give this fine presentation. But the offer's out there for you, and hopefully you could make it. But I guess Ginny would be the contact person or her staff to see if that could happen.
I hope so.
Any other board
I hope
questions?
so.
Yes, sir.
I would like to be with you in California now, but this morning, about 10 hours later, we have a flight to Switzerland, Basel. So it's really hard for me to come to California for a half an hour and come back to Basel. So please take my apologies, and I will try to be in your next meeting.
It was wishful thinking on our part.
Or we can go there.
Maybe we'll move the board over
That's
to you.
out-of-state travel. It's a little hard. Out-of-country travel is a little harder to get, we would think.
Absolutely.
Is there any other board questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I want to know if they have the stats showing the number or the man hours it took from, I guess, was there any increase in man hours with this program once it was implemented?
Okay, what
Like
board-
on the wholesale.
The board member asked, did you, and I'm paraphrasing, did you or did the industry complain of any increase of manpower and implementation of this
Of course.
process? And how extensive
Of
was
course. Of course. In the first stage, in the preliminary phase, they really fought and resisted to our decisions. But we made a lot of workshops with them, and we listened to them, and in every meeting we created new of ITS to them. After implementing such a system, every manufacturer is happy, because we can prevent the counterfeit nationally, and also they can find out the frauds in their own companies, and they can catch the criminals in their own companies. So it's really beneficial to everybody. First, it's starting with believing. So they believe that the system is also beneficial for them. We convince them that it's beneficial. Then they make the investment, and now the investment they get back the investment that they did, I think.
Thank you. Any other board questions?
Maybe I can add something. Maybe you didn't ask, but I can add something. I cannot give you the cost of the system because it's confidential by the government, but I can give you the return of investment. Do you know what return of investment is?
Yes. Oh, I don't know what yours is. That would be very interesting. I'm sure our business partners would love to hear that as well.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. The return of investment of the system is 18 hours. Not years, not months. It's 18 hours. The cost of the system is by the country in hours.
Was that realized by the companies seeing an increase in sales because of the decrease of fraudulent product?
See the increase of sale, but their productivity and efficiency is improved.
Thank you. Very interesting.
And the fraud in the sector. decreased, in the companies are decreased.
We have another question from our executive officer.
You're going to have to you're going to have to relay it. This is for the webcast, and then you're going to have to relay it to Taha, okay? We are hearing that some companies will not be ready to meet the January 1, 2015 deadline, which means they won't be able to sell their product in California. In Turkey, were there companies that had to forego selling drugs in Turkey because they were not ready? And if so, what was the effect on public health?
The question we have is that
Yes.
California has a deadline that needs to be met for the pedigree process, and we're
Yes,
hearing from
2015.
that they were having some concerns from the manufacturers that they will not be able to make that deadline. So the question we have for you is, did you run into the same type of problems where manufacturers were not able to make your deadline? And if so, what kind of impact did it have on public health in Turkey?
We faced bigger problems because in the beginning stage, technology was not improved enough. So there were no HD cameras. There were no packaging lines that can print data matrices. So we faced bigger problems. And they said, I mean, the manufacturers and also other type of stakeholders resisted to start at the beginning of the 2010. But our minister decided to start on the first day of January of 2010. So, you know, I said that the biggest customer of the industry is the state itself in Turkey. So the biggest customer rules, you know. They had to obey the rule. So in the first 6 months, it was really a mess. Really, the health service, I mean, slowed down, and sometimes we faced some big problems. But we always come together with the manufacturers, help them to get the improved technology, and in 6 months we solved all of our problems. So I can say that the starting date of ITS is 1st of January 2010, but the real starting date is 27th of May of 2010. So if you change something in the strategy, then the manufacturers should invest on a new technology, and that technology, I mean that technology, to develop that technology, it will take more time. But in our system, the technology is enough, and the standards, the documents, the legislations are consistent and finished. So we can share everything with you to make you not to lose any time, like us.
Thank you.
And also one more thing. You are really very welcome. Be in Turkey. You can see how the system works by your own eyes, and I will be glad to see you all in Turkey, and I can organize a journey to site visits for manufacturers, wholesalers, and pharmacies maybe, and hospitals, and also I can give you a full presentation in Turkey maybe.
That would be awesome if we're able to do that. I think our business partners have a better chance of that than we do. With that, any more board questions? Then I'll open up to the public. Any public questions? Please come up here. Any? I guess your presentation was very eye-opening for us as well as the industry here. We love to hear more, so we'll keep in contact. Thank you for taking the time.
Okay.
We have using technology at its best right now. So
Okay.
with that, I think we're just very appreciative of your presentation, and thank you very much.
I thank you very much. We're nice meeting. I have to go to another meeting, but my colleague is here for any other question that you can ask.
Thank you again. We'll keep in contact.
Victor?
Might be still online. Did we sign them off? Okay. Thank you. That was very impressive. Thanks for arranging that presentation.